Alright, so I'm home alone and I'm looking to have a bad time. So today, I'm going to tell you a story that I'm scared to tell when I'm alone. I've always been telling scary stories. And when I was a kid, I liked to make them interactive. I didn't want to just tell a story, I wanted people to feel like they were part of the story. And this resulted in a lot of angry phone calls to my mom from the parents of kids who were convinced that they were living in a horror movie because of me. That, by the way, is not a poltergeist. It is my cat. And this is relevant, I guess, but even though I was making this stuff up, it really started to feel real at a certain point. Like, it really felt like things were happening, and sometimes things kind of got out of control. And this is one of those instances. Now, in the little town where I grew up, there was this park near my house. And in the park, there was this little wooded area that was kind of edged by the brook that ran through my whole town. And for some reason, I started telling people that this wooded area was called the Devil's Pit, and that Satanists would go out there and perform rituals. So something I would do is I would bring my friends out there and I would get them to the edge of the woods, and then I would tell them this whole story about these satanic cults that were practicing out in these woods, and the fact that there was this one area that was kind of trampled where the devil used to run around. And I would tell them that there was a girl who was murdered and that all of her body parts were hung from the trees. And I would say, okay, like, we're gonna go out there, but if anybody sees anything or anyone, just start running and we'll all know that we have to get out. And inevitably, because I had just told them this horrifying story, someone would see something and then we'd all freak out and this kind of mass hysteria event would happen and we'd all run out of the woods. And the thing is, we really did see stuff out there sometimes. I mean, even though I had made it up, we kept finding things that kind of corroborated my story. One time we found these animal bones that were kind of arranged in a circle, like in a ritualistic fashion. I swear that I saw a man in a cloak come out from behind a tree. It was really weird. I don't know if it was just our imaginations or what. But as we got a little older, we couldn't get the same thrill out of the whole satanic cult thing anymore, and we started pushing the envelope a bit. So we would go there after dark, and we would play Ouija board. And there was this area at the back of the woods where the brook ran on one side, there were woods on the other side, and then in between there was this little pathway. And on the other side of the brook, there was this little island that was carved out by the way the brook kind of curved around and then came back out the other way. So we would sit on the little path between the brook and the woods, and we would bring this very lantern, that was my cat by the way, not a demon, we bring this very lantern here out there, and we lay the Ouija board down on the path, we would gather around it and we would play. Now my friends and I were experienced Ouija board players. Little sidebar, we were addicted to Ouija board. We were conjuring ghosts every day with that shit. We used to knock on doors and find other bitches that would play with us. We were addicted. I've had a lot of crazy experiences playing Ouija board. I'm gonna eventually do a Ouija board only video, but for now we're just talking about this specific Ouija board experience that we would have out in these woods. So out there, we were consistently making contact with the same entity, and this entity told us its name was JX. Uma is being so bad right now, she's literally dragging my phone away from me that has my notes on it. Please, ma'am, please. You're being the biggest menace. No, not the microphone. Alright, now you gotta get on camera. Yes, baby. Yeah? Okay. Alright, go be a demon somewhere else. So, this entity said its name was JX, and when me and my friends would play Ouija board, we would try to get to know the ghosts that we were in contact with. We wouldn't, ask about our true love's initials or how many kids we were gonna have when we grew up. No, we wanted to know the ghosts that we were talking to. We would ask their name, how old they were when they died, what year they died, how they died, and this way we would get some really creepy stories. We wanted a ghost story, right? So we were doing that with this entity called JX. We said, what's your name? It said JX. How old were you? It said 10 years old. It said 10 years old. So the ghost said it's 10 years old. And, Uma, stop. Meanwhile, this little demon is being a little poltergeist. But I'm hearing stuff over here too, like on my stairs over here. Alright, let's keep going though. Be gone, evil spirit. Excuse me. Somebody call Ed and Lorraine Warren. No. Uma. I think somebody needs to have a little snack. Hold on. Okay. I've appeased the devil with some snacks. Let's try to continue. So, this entity told us his name was JX, said it was a 10-year-old girl. Now, we knew our town had been a sheep farm before they put a bunch of factories there in the early 1900s and it became a town. So when she said that her father was a sheep farmer, it made sense to us. We were like, alright. But then she told us how she died. And she said that she went out into the woods, those very same woods where we were sitting in the dark, and she said that a wolf tore her apart. Now, this really unnerved us, but it didn't seem implausible either. I mean, obviously wolves weren't living in the woods of New Jersey at this point, but wolves had probably lived there at some point, so we were like, okay, a wolf. And the thing is, it kind of also made JX very sympathetic to us, because we were like, oh, she's a little girl, she died this really horrifying and terrible death, and she's all alone out in these woods, like, we have to come back and talk to her, like, we have to be her friend. And JX kind of played into this, because she told us she was lonely, and that she really liked us talking to her, and she asked us to promise that we'd always come back and talk to her. And we did, because we were like, yeah, JX, we're your friends, like, we'll always come back and talk to you. And we went out there a lot, like, we would go out with a little lantern and the Ouija board, and we would talk to her for hours, and we started really opening up to her and telling her all of our problems, and it got to the point where we would ask her questions that were almost divinatory in nature. We would play a game where only one of us would think a question and would not touch the board, and then we would see if the people who were touching the board could answer that question, and often they could. So it started to get a little strange, but then it got weirder, because we started to notice that as we were talking to JX, we would start to hear something out in the woods, and it was footsteps pacing back and forth right behind us in the woods, and it would just keep going back and forth, and we would freeze, and we all look, and we all heard it. And we asked JX, is that you? And she said yes. So we were like, okay. And we kind of tried to ignore it. But every now and then, we'd stop. And we'd look out into the darkness between the trees. And we tried to see her. But we didn't see anything. We just saw the shadows. And we heard the pacing back and forth, back and forth. Oof, Jesus Christ. So for a while, we're just like, okay, she's a little creepy, but I mean, she's a ghost, you know, comes with the territory. But there was one night that we're out there playing Ouija board, and I kind of paused, and I focused on the sound of the pacing. And I noticed something, which is that it didn't sound like footsteps. It sounded like hooves. And I didn't say anything at first, I just listened to it. And then I turned to the board and I asked, JX, is that really you out there? And she said yes. My friends all stopped and they were looking at me because they could feel that my vibe had changed. And I asked, do you have hooves? And the planchette slides to yes. And we all lost our fucking shit. We all ran out as fast as we could. We got out under the streetlights and we're all just brushing ourselves off. Like, we felt energy clinging to ourselves, and we felt it like cobwebs all over us, and we couldn't get them off. And I said, you know, maybe she attached herself to us. So we went back to my house, and I was like kind of a wannabe witch. So I had a bunch of sage and stuff, and we all cleansed ourselves, you know, burning sage, saying these little sayings, and rinsing our arms with salt water, and like rubbing crystals around each other. And it didn't really matter to me exactly what we were doing. It was more about us believing that it was cleansing ourselves, because I believed that she couldn't attach herself to us if we weren't willing to be vessels for her, and if we kind of made it known that we wanted her off of us and that we were not going to let her attach to us. So that's what we did. We just kind of rinsed ourselves off, and nothing really happened at that point. What is that? Oh my god, you guys see that? Proof of the paranormal. Right here. Paranormally cute. Okay, I'm done. Alright, so for a long time we didn't go back, but I was really morbidly curious, and me and my friend kept talking about it. So one day we were like, okay, we'll go back during the day. So we went back in daylight, and we were walking around out there, like, I don't know what we were even looking for, hoof prints, whatever. We're just wandering around, and I realized that me and her, we used to hang out back there all the time. Like, when we were little kids, we used to swim in the brook up and down, like, we were there a lot. But I realized that we had never crossed the brook and gone to that weird little island that's made by the curve over there. And I was like, we've never gone over there. Like, why don't we go over there and see what's there? So we crossed the brook, and we get onto this little island. It was small, like very small, maybe like 20 feet by 20 feet across. I'm really bad with spatial recognition, but that's my best estimation. It's like the size of this room, so small. So we're out there, and what we found chilled us to the bone. The first thing that we noticed was that there was a bunch of magazines laying on the ground. And we picked them up, and it was the quintessential porn in the woods. Do kids today still find porn in the woods? Is that still a thing? I don't know. Am I showing my age? So first we found all of these soggy porn magazines scattered in the leaves, and we picked them up, and we were curious, and they were clearly very old, like the photos were very outdated. But the other thing that we noticed was that there was something else out there. Aside from these ancient tomes of pornography, there was a bunch of little girls' underwear. And I mean, like a bunch of little tiny undies. And they were really old and weather damaged, but they were clearly from very young children. And this absolutely freaked us out. We were so horrified. We ran out to the edge of the island, we crossed the brook really quick, and then we got out onto that path where we used to play Ouija board, and we started running out of the woods. And we heard footsteps running after us the whole way. I mean, we burst out of those woods. Like, there was a Little League baseball game happening right where we got out, and we fucking ran through the baseball game to get out of the park. We were horrified. And to be honest, we didn't go back there. Not together anyway, but of course I've gone back. I mean, this whole experience was just so intense and real to us, and I wanted to tell this story to my partner, Michael. So a couple of years ago, I brought him out there, and I was kind of building up to everything. Like, I was telling him about the Devil's Pit stuff. I was telling him about how my friend and I used to swim in the brook. I was telling him about how we used to collect snails on this little rock wall, you know, like a bunch of different stories about this area. And suddenly, I started to hear a familiar sound. Pacing in the woods behind us, going back and forth. And I stopped talking, and I looked out there. And Michael heard it too, because he froze, and he looks out there too. And I was like, I'll get to you. And it stopped. And he was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, his face fell, and he was like, what is happening? And I was like, I'll tell you, but we gotta go. So me and him start walking out of the woods as I'm telling him this whole story about JX. So to me, this was kind of a compelling experience, because I read a lot of what happened early on off to, you know, childhood imagination, but this happened when I was a full-ass adult, alongside my partner, who's a huge skeptic. So, I don't know. I think about it a lot. I think about how we promised we'd always go back and how we broke that promise. And I wonder if she's mad at us. And I wonder what she really was. Like, I don't believe that she was a little girl who was ripped apart by wolves. First of all, that story is so creepy. But, oh God. What the fuck? It sounds like someone's walking up the stairs right now. Okay. This is what I asked for, isn't it? This is the fate I chose, right? What do you guys think? Should I play a little ghost box? Here we are. Does this still have battery?
Ghost box. Scanning. FM.
If this says some shit, I'm gonna lose it, y'all. I want to reiterate. Number 1, I'm home alone. Number 2, I'm drinking tequila. Number 3, all the lights are off. Number 4, I heard footsteps on the stairs. So let's see if JX wants to talk to us. I'm serious. Do you hear that? Alright, how do we scan again? You know what? I have an EMF detector too. Let me go grab that. One sec. I'm gonna leave this running just in case, you know, something crazy happens. Alright. Is anyone here? JX? Are you mad that I never came back? Nothing there yet.
Xbox. Scanning. FM.
Why does this bitch have to have such a creepy voice, though? Like, that's just evil. They designed this evil style. Is there anyone here? Do you want to talk to me? Alright. I think this bitch just wants to knock, walk up the stairs, scare the shit out of me. I don't know. But hopefully, someday soon, I'm gonna go back to Jersey and I'll record out in that area and I'll show you everything and maybe JX will make an appearance. Or maybe she's gonna make an appearance tonight in my apartment while I'm here alone. I guess we'll see.